Unlike above ground crops, it is not always easy to tell when potatoes are ready to harvest. Today, I'm going to share 6 signs that they're ready to dig up and 2 times when not to harvest potatoes. Hi guys, I'm April from Resprout. Like and subscribe for more garden tips and tutorials from my suburban front yard garden where I help you garden like a boss. The first time you can harvest potatoes is when they're in the baby or new potato stage, about 1 to 2 inches in diameter. All potato varieties will reach this stage about 7 to 8 weeks after being planted. I plant one of my potato crops in the fall, so that along with greens and peas are the first things I get in the spring. Baby potatoes have thin, immature skins. You'll be able to rub them off. That makes them super tender and great for roasting, but pretty bad for storage. So make sure to refrigerate them and use them quickly within 10 days. The plants at this stage are still green, lush, and young. Anything you harvest at this point is taking away from harvesting that same potato much larger at a later point, so don't go too overboard on the harvest here. There is a special way to harvest new potatoes to keep the main plant alive. If you want to learn more about that, stay tuned for our next video on how to harvest potatoes. White or lavender potato flowers are another sign your potatoes are ready to harvest. After the flowers fall off is when you can harvest new potatoes. This sign might not work for everyone though. Not all potato varieties flower, and seed suppliers don't usually mention if they flower or not. Also, not all climates allow flowering. I live in the Northeast United States in Zone 7A. I've been growing the same 2 varieties every year, Katahdin and Red Norland, and sometimes they flower and sometimes they don't. So this is a good sign, but if the 7 to 8 week time frame comes and goes and there's no flowers and you're looking for new potatoes, I would say dig in. I said dig in. The third sign that you can harvest your potatoes is if you've reached the date to maturity for your variety. Generally, for spring planted potatoes, that's 55 to 120 days from being planted. My fall planted potatoes get a quicker start in the spring, but still take about the same total days. Keep in mind that dates to maturity are for best case growing conditions, which almost never happen. I always add on 5 to 10 days depending on how well the season went. Even without this extra time, that is a pretty huge range, more than 2 months. That's why it's so important to know the variety or at least the type of potatoes you have. Early season potatoes, also called earlies, will be ready 55 to 70 days from planting. Early varieties include Yukon Gold, Viking, Rocket, and Blue Danube. Mid-season potatoes, also known as second earlies, can be harvested 70 to 90 days after planting. These include varieties like Kennebec, Red Pontiac, and Nicola. Late season potatoes, also called main crop potatoes, are ready 90 to 120 days after planting. Popular main crop varieties include Russet Burbank, Katahdin, and Desiree. There are a lot of potato varieties, and the different colors, blue, purple, yellow, and white, fall into all these seasonal types. If you're not sure where yours lands, check with your seed supplier. Or you can visit our website, resprout.com, where you can find a full chart of potato varieties, including my favorites. We'll break them down by what type they are, their dates to maturity, plus links to purchase them. If you have a favorite potato variety, let us all know down in the comments. Tell us about your climate and why it's your favorite. Now, here's a cocktail party word you only pull out at the most nerdiest of gatherings: senescence. That's when the potato plant dies back. If your potatoes are starting to look pathetic like this, yellow, brown, holes in the leaves, crispy edges, flopping over, there's actually nothing wrong. They've lived their best lives, and the potato tubers, the roots that we eat, are done growing since the stems and leaves are no longer feeding them. To harvest, wait until the vines are completely brown and dead. You may even want to wait a few days, up to a week beyond this, to allow the skins to toughen up. For maximum storability, this is the time to harvest both storage and seed potatoes. And if you're harvesting your full potato crop, I highly recommend using a harvest apron like this one from Rue. It's machine washable, thank goodness, because potatoes are not clean. Not only is it my go-to weeding buddy, but it holds an astounding amount of heavy potatoes. Use the code RESPROUT for 10% off on their website. If your first frost is about to hit or is around the corner, now is the time to start harvesting. Potato plants can take a light frost, but if the tubers get frozen, they will turn to mush. If your potato plants haven't died back yet, they will from the frost anyway, so no sense holding out. That being said, if you live in a moderate climate, you might be able to push this much further than the first frost. Where I live, the temperatures rarely go below 25 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter. I've left potatoes in my raised beds, protected by several inches of soil and mulch, and they've been just fine months after the first frost. In fact, even after a winter harvest, I will often find forgotten potatoes in my beds come spring, rock hard, in perfect condition. And the potato seeds I plant in the fall, when I plant them deep enough, aren't bothered by my winter temps. So I'd say know the first frost rule, and depending on your climate and your level of laziness, know when to break it. Another great sign to harvest potatoes, seriously, when you're hungry. As you can tell now, you can harvest potatoes anytime between the new potato phase and when they die back. That is a 70-day harvest window for late season potatoes. If you have multiple varieties and season types of potatoes planted, or you're doing succession planting, this huge 70-day harvest range is even bigger. And if you're being lazy like me, leaving potatoes in the ground until midwinter, and if you're fall planting and getting a crazy early new potato crop in the spring, your potato harvest range is the majority of the year. You can easily go into your garden and just harvest a few potatoes for dinner and use your garden like a spare refrigerator. And who doesn't want a spare fridge of potatoes? Come on. For the most part, don't overthink the harvest time. Gently dig a tuber up and try not to damage the plant or the root. If it's not ready and it's still attached to the plant, put it back in the ground. If it's not attached, eat it. End of story. There are two important times you do not want to harvest potatoes. Firstly, if the potato has turned green, don't harvest it. Send it straight to the compost. The green means the potato has been exposed to the sun and solanine has formed in the green areas. Sometimes that can happen when potatoes push their way up out of the soil or if the soil hills are disturbed. Unless consumed in very large quantities, solanine will not kill you, but it will give you diarrhea, headaches, and abdominal pains, so definitely not fun. You can cut out small areas of green, no problem. Sometimes larger potatoes will be green just on the outside and you can cut or peel that off, but usually it's not worth the extra work. Potatoes that have solanine in them taste bitter anyway, so you're not saving much. Another time when not to harvest potatoes is before their first 7 weeks after planting. They're just too young. You might find a couple marble-sized potatoes, but because the plant is so immature, you'd likely kill it. Better to wait for new potatoes at least, which you can get at the 7 to 8 week mark. If gardening has taught me anything, it is patience. Patience. I hope this video helped you out. Remember to sign up for my email newsletter for more garden resources. And keep gardening like a boss, and I'll see you guys soon.